Anne Diamond here on BBC Radio Berkshire. I was visiting my 23-year-old son the other day at his home in London, and he said, Mum, I've got a rash, and showed me just this little rash on his arm. And it's interesting that just after a few years in university, where they clearly go on and on and on about meningitis at university and amongst young people, he'd known already he said, I've done the tumbler test, I don't think I've got meningitis, because he was showing, other signs of not feeling very well, feeling a bit drowsy and all the rest of it. And actually what it was just, in the end, it was nothing to worry about at all. But what I was particularly impressed by was that he knew about meningitis and he knew about the tumbler test. And I thought, thank God. I've obviously gone over it with him years ago, but at university they do seem to ram it home to them quite hard that they've got to look out for these symptoms. How incredibly important is it to know about the signs of meningitis and then what to do about it and how to do the tumbler test? Well, my next guest knows how incredibly important it is. She's Nicola Nielsen from Whitley, who sadly lost her 12-year-old son Ben to meningitis. But from her grief, she is now campaigning in his memory for funds for the Meningitis Trust to help others who are in the same situation as Ben, but most of all to get the word across. Isn't that right, Nicola?
That's right. Yeah. I'm saying to my mum, Ben's really sick, and Mum said, Nick, Ben is 12 years old, he's a fighter, we'll get some medicine, we'll take him home. But as a mum, I'm thinking, no, he's not well. So he had to do a wee sample, so I managed to get him out of bed, take him to the toilet. He did laugh at me because, I was helping him get out of bed, and he put his arms around me, and I always said that I would remember it for the rest of my life, how his arms,
it's all right, take a breath, yeah.
Felt like lead weights. And he said, I love you, Mum. So I took Ben to the toilet, come back, got Ben into bed, and I laughed with him and said, you got any room in there for Mum? And he shuffled over, and I said, I'm going to take a picture of you, Ben. I said, with all your, because he had a cannula in and everything else. I said, so tomorrow when we come home, I said, you'll see how brave you were. And he laughed at me. So I took his pictures, and I got into bed with him, and I was stroking his head, and my mum said to me, he's really hot. So we put the fan on, and then he said to me he felt cold. So it was like I didn't know what to do for him, still not knowing anything, still not knowing that Ben's results were back on the system. Nobody had come and told me anything. So Ben just sat up in bed, bolt upright, and he took a gasp of breath, and he just went back on the pillow. And I thought he was asleep, I just thought he was tired after everything that had been going on. And then all of a sudden, the doors opened, and everybody was running around, trying to take more blood from him, and then they wheeled us to another room where they're trying to put tubes and everything in Ben, and saying to me to run with the bed, not to move out of the way, just to keep talking to him, which I'd done.
Was he responsive at all?
No. Ben, he had...
Did you feel at that moment you might have lost him?
I knew. I just looked at my mum and I said, Ben's gone. I just knew. Something in my stomach, my heart felt like it was coming out of my mouth. I just knew.
I think anyone hearing you will be absolutely staggered that it can happen so quickly.
Very, very quickly. This is why, from Ben going into A&E to one room, then Ben went into intensive care. Then for me to be, because I kept on asking the doctor, is Ben going to die? And she said to me, Ben is very ill. I said, but is he going to die? She said, I don't know. And then 20 minutes later, she's called me in again and told me to get everybody together because Ben will not make it.
Oh, Nicola, it's just so dreadful what you've been through. And little Ben, poor little Ben. And that was nearly 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago in February.
But very bravely, you have come in to tell your story, because it's so important to tell everybody that meningitis is a killer, and that it needn't be if you can act fast enough and get the right sort of help. We'll go into that in a few moments.
Okay.
Let's have some music while you catch your breath.